Well, tonight we're going to talk about improving our tools a little bit. The thing about woodworking is you never kind of stay the same in your tools. I'm always trying to improve things. You know, you're thinking about getting something new. But sometimes you live with an inferior tool for a long time. And you really, it's not like you can't use it, but what I'm talking about is when you get some tools that have poor or shoddy or just disappointing handles on them, and you've used them for a long time. I remember, and I got these rasps. It's always one of those words that's hard to say. Rasps. When I got these rasps, these are Nicholson rasps, and they're really nice. But when you buy them, they don't come with handles, so they're kind of like that. You know, and maybe you're like me, you use rasps like this and just wrap them with cloth and, you know, held on to the tang and let that spear point work in your hand. But I remember when I got these, I was thinking, okay, I got to get some handles, and I just looked at a catalog, and I sent away, and they sent me, you know, I got like a half a dozen handles, and this was one of them. And I mean, it's small. It doesn't really fit my hand. See, I prefer it to be resting in my palm a little more, and it's just not a good fit. Plus, look at it cracked, and that's just from the air drying. And then it has this chintzy little ferrule, which is the metal, kind of like a support brace ring, so that when you drive that tang in there, it doesn't split. Sorry, doesn't split the handle right off, and it holds it in there. So this is one of those little thin, almost like sheet metal punched rings, and they work. But so I've had these, and I've had these hanging, you know, this and my other Nicholson, you know, hanging right here in my tool cabinet. And I've always wanted to do something about that. And, sorry, I dropped this clamp. And I also got my veneering tools, like the veneer saw. That has like a chintzy little handle on it. You know, it's not that great. It's all right. You can use it. And sometimes you get chisels. Maybe you buy them at a flea market, and you find maybe in a yard sale or something, you find some nice chisels, and they've got no handle on them. Now, all of my chisels do have handles, but I do have this one that a friend gave to me, and he actually told me that he bought this chisel at some kind of yard sale or flea market or old tool sale, and you can often find just the chisel metal part itself without the handle. So he made this handle really nice. It's like an oak handle, and this chisel is designed with a hollow taper, and so you have to actually turn the taper to fit. So I'm not going to do exactly that, but what I want to show you tonight is making your own handles. Upgrade, improve, make them fit your hand, make them look nice so they're hanging in the cabinet. Every time you pick it up, you're just like, yeah, I'm not quite the master. I made this handle. But really, to have a good tool, it is reassuring, and I've never regretted like buying a nice tool or a nice hand plane or something, because every time you pick it up, you go, yeah, you just feel like a feedback from it, that it's made with excellence and you're ready to do some excellent work. And so why not do that with our chisels? I mean our tool handles. So what I want to show you is just a process that I use to make some tool handles. And this process also works if you want to just start wood turning and start like small projects. You can buy the hardware to make these really cool various things like ice cream scoops. I've made a couple of those recently, even for Christmas, and I'll show you one after. You can what is it? It's Craft Supplies USA and also Penn State Industries. These are different wood turning suppliers. Oh, of course, you can turn pens, but that's not what we're doing here. We're making handles. Oh, I made a handle for a pizza cutter. And so you can buy the metal and make your own kind of cool handle. So the handles I'm going to show you tonight and the method will work with a lot of those, but a lot of those also thread in. So what you'll do is just drill the appropriate hole, and then you thread the metal part in, and then it all fits. But you're just going to turn or handle that however you need to. What I want to do is show you a little bit about using a lathe. And what's great about wood turning is that it's an independent kind of skill and aspect of woodworking that you could just focus on just this if you wanted to. You know, there are people who just make bowls and parts for furniture or pens and handles and stuff like that. I like it. I learned when I was 13 years old to wood turn, but I'm not like one of those guys who's amazing that I've seen on Instagram, because I don't do it all the time. It's periodic. But it's a really great way to experience woodworking and also have this kind of immediate gratification, because it doesn't take long to make something, as you'll see in a few minutes. And it doesn't take up much room. It's not very expensive to get started. You just need a lathe, probably a little bandsaw, and then maybe a little dust collector. If you wanted to just take a spare room in your house, you could get into wood turning. You know, you could have your little dust collector, your little bench, in your bandsaw, and your lathe, some chisels, a sharpening system, a table. No, sorry. Sounds like a lot. No, but that's it. I mean, seriously, you can get into it, and it's a nice low entry thing. So if you're curious and you don't want to buy the lathe and you want to just, the class would be great, or you can just go up and look at videos of people, but there's nothing like the experience of doing it to make it enjoyable. So what we're going to do is make a handle for, I don't know, one of these, either this one, the tang here, or let's say we're going to replace the one on my veneer saw. So this has almost a round tang. It's actually faceted, and this is just kind of fit in there by jamming it in there and forcing it in. Hope I can take it out now. Yeah. So I could epoxy it in when I'm done, but you have to be confident that you're never going to want to change the handle again if you do that. If you make a really nice one, why not? You could epoxy it in if you have a problem. But sometimes you want to just friction fit it, jam it in there with the way I just did. So I'm going to just make a handle very similar to one I just made for an ice cream scoop, because I like the size of it. I like the fit of it. It fits my hand. And you can design your own, you can change this, you know, but this is kind of a pretty cool shape. It's a classic, and it's very similar to this one here, except I'm going to put a little bead on the end, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than this for the veneer saw. All right. So I made a little drawing of it right here, and I don't know if you could see, but you've got a little straight area there, and that's going to be for the ferrule. So we're going to use these little brass ferrules. You can buy like I don't know, half dozen of them or more. I forget, did I get a full dozen or 10? 10 of them come in this pack. I'm going to put a link to that on in the what do we call that? The description area right after under the video. If you go on there after, we'll have a link to these little collars if you want to make them. So I like this size. It's 5/8 diameter, and it tends to work really well for most of these tools. So you can see if I'm going to turn a handle, that's almost exactly the same size as this, but that's just smaller. So I'm going to have to make it large enough for this. And you can see that's what that area is there. So here's the profile of my handle. You can kind of see this is where the handle gets narrow. So I've got it cut less than half. And this is where it gets larger for the ball kind of that sits in the palm of my hand. And I make that up to like 1.5 inches. You can try it out while you're turning it. I'd start larger and then see how it feels. And then you can always go a little smaller if that feels like too much in your hand. And then I'm going to put a little bead on the end because I kind of like the way my baby finger locks it around that when I'm using it for certain things. But you can make it however you want. It's kind of, so this is a very almost like an OG curve, this reverse curve. It's kind of artsy or smooth curves. Little nicer than this one. I mean, look at this. There's not much style to that, right? But we'll see how we go. Now, the first thing to do is prep your stock. And I prepped this a little longer than my handle. So these are about 5.5 long. And I squared them up. I squared them and I bandsawed them out and cut them to 5.5. Now I'm going to find the centers on each end. So for that, I just set my marking gauge. I'm going to score a line. If I go around all 4 sides like this, and I'm close to the middle, what I end up with, and I don't think you can see this because it's so dark, the wood, unless I reflect it right. Can you see it? You can? So you end up with like a little crosshatch, and you're just going right in the middle of that tiny square. That's your center. So I'm going to do it on the other side. What lengths? Oh, okay. I'll put a link even to this lathe if you want to check it out. It's a nice bench top lathe. So once I got that hash, I'm going to use an awl and really poke the center on each end. And this is going to help establish the axis right down the center. Okay, so once I've got that, the first thing I want to do is drill the hole for the tang. So if I'm using this one, I found that approximately a 1/4 inch hole will work. I could do larger, but I'm going to start with a 1/4, and I need to drill that as true as possible. So I'm going to show you a setup right now I have on the lathe that I like to use, on the drill press. I've got this set up here at the drill press, and I'm going to just hold the wood. I need something to hold it vertically. So this is where these hand screws come in handy. I'm clamping them down to the bench with these other clamps like this. And then I can loosen it and move this forward. So what I'm going to do is get one of the smooth sides, there we are, and bring it down until I see I'm hitting the center. It looks good from here, but that point is right in the center now. So I'm going to take a square and make sure that it's sitting square. That looks good. Sitting nice and square right there. So while I've got it held, I'm going to tighten the hand screws and lock it in. Okay? So what I've just done is I've locked this in the vertical position, and the hole I drill here will be pretty true. I mean, it doesn't have to be absolute perfect, but I know that everything's lined up to be as close as I can get to perfect. Now I know with that tang I only need about 1 inch. Oh, I'm sorry. This handle I'm going to make for something else, but I put the tape at how deep I need for the particular tang, whatever you're working on. And that's it. It's that simple. See that? We've got a nice centered hole right in the middle. And the other end will be our drive center. So let's go over to the lathe and we'll set that up. Just for our lathe, the basic parts are on this end here, we've got the motor drives a belt. So this is my drive end of the lathe. This is where I get my power to spin. So on that end, I need a spur bit. This actually seats right into the piece, and it keeps it from spinning like when it's on the lathe. You want the piece to spin, but you don't want it to slip. So I'll set this point right in that little impression I made, and I'm going to use my mallet to drive it in. Oops. So I just need the spurs to make some engagement there. Now, on the other end, I've got the hole we just drilled, which is centered, and that's going to just ride right on this center here. This is called a live center. There's ball bearings in there, and this is the free end, which I can just move in and out. So I'm going to move my tool rest back, get the spur center in the headstock. Now this is the tail stock. It's going to come up, and about there, I'll lock it in. And now I'm going to just advance the live center, and that 60-degree like cone shape of the live center just perfectly fits right into that hole we just drilled. So we know we're centering on the axis right there. All right, there you go. All right, so now I'm going to move my tool rest up, and I've got a little space right there. Now, I didn't even mention the wood. I'm using wenge. It's a dark, heavy, very hard African hardwood, and I really like the look of it. When you finish it, it almost looks like ebony, but it's brown, and a brownish dark. And this will make a wonderful handle. It will look unusual, that's for sure. It'll look high style, and that's what we're after right here, right? So this is my setup, and I'm going to turn the handle like this. So I want to allow for the brass fitting on this end, and then I'll turn the smaller part of the neck, and then it'll come out to the heavier part of the handle right there. So it's going to be like a bulb here, and then I'll put a little bead on the end there. All right? So the first thing I got to do is spin it round, and I'm going to turn it so that it's this dimension, about 1 5/16", and that way the whole cylinder will be set. I want to just make sure it's 1 5/16" right here anyway. All right, so here we go. First thing I'm going to do is turn it round, and for that I'm going to use a gouge. Now you could use a roughing gouge. I don't have a classic roughing gouge. I'm trying to remember. I used to always use this one, which is technically a bowl gouge. But this is small, so I'm just going to use a spindle gouge that's only 5/8 of an inch. So this will be the gouge to round it off. Just a tip, this is a cool system that I don't even know where you would get one of these, but I got it from a friend who was making them. And I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but this is a nice method to quickly sharpen, because I got a sandpaper belt on like a little belt sander here with a spinning buffing wheel over here. And by moving this little block in these holes, you can change the distance from the belt, which changes the angle. So this is my 5/8. Oh, okay, right here. My 5/8 spindle gouge is right there. So I put the back of my block right there, and then when this comes in, it lays right against the paper. So if I want to touch it up, I just whoops. That's it. I got a nice fresh edge. It's just the perfect radius. So, ready to go. So we'll turn it round, and I'm going to set these calipers. These are set to the 1 5/16" right here. So I'm going to that's going to be my main diameter. Here we go. go to the skew, which gives you a smoother now it's round, but let's see where we're at. We're still a little heavy. Still heavy. That's probably close.
What speed are you at right now?
I don't know. This has different settings. I would have to look at. I'm on that I'm on that. Can you see where I am? Oh, there I am. Okay. Actually, it's telling me I'm at 1,800 RPMs. So that's a good speed for a small piece like this. But as a beginner, you don't want to start there. Okay, so now I've got it round. I'm where I want to be for the largest part of the handle. So now I'm going to make a few key points. I'll mark them out. So I'm just going to use my template and like this. I'm going to leave a little extra for the ferrule, and I'll just turn it to the right length after I'm going to actually fit the ferrule first. Ferrule fitting first is preferred.
Fun.
Fun. I couldn't. It's the fastidious. Okay, so there's my key points. My largest point here, I want to leave that, and where I want the ferrule, and then this is the low point. Then this is going to be 7/8 right here. The low part is 5/8. And then I'll make a 5/8 inch bead on the end as well. So I use those points. I'm going to set my pen and just make a little spin line. So these will show up once it starts spinning again. All right. Now I'm going to move my tool rest a little bit closer since I took off so much material. And now what I want to do is pick out a brass ferrule. And this will fit. That's interesting. These are a little different. I noticed that these brass ferrules have one edge is kind of relieved on the inside, and that's the first. That's going to go on first. It tends to work better that way. And then, so this will be fit right over here. So what I want to do is first fit that. Now I have this sample one that I've already fit. And it fits, it's a little loose, but maybe it's that ferrule. But anyway, I'm going to just use my calipers and set them to work with this one here. So I'll go a little bit heavier than this. Okay, that feels good. Now I'm going to turn this down, and we're going to fit that ferrule first. All right, here we go. I'm going to get right on that line. Right against it. So it just fell over. Okay. I'll just quickly get this down. Fine-tune this. Okay, just gonna smooth that out a little bit. Okay, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and try to fit the ferrule, and it's too fat. So I adjusted the calipers too large. Let me go back to my sample. Yeah, definitely. Okay, that feels good there. I'm just going to adjust it one more time. So I got a little notch in one of these spurs that I can tell how to put it back on the same way. It's a good idea to notch your spurs. One of them. All right, here we go. Okay. Let's see how that works. It's a little bit, sometimes you'll hit it right away, and sometimes you got to make a few attempts. So I'm still a little bit, it's starting to go. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that other one. But I just got to trim a little. It's okay if it's slightly under, because usually I'll epoxy them on anyway, and that will fill you. But it's not too hard to get it pretty nice. A little trial and error.
Fred says you can't put the wood back on.
No, that's right, Fred. I'm just touching it. I don't want to overdo it, but it's funny, sometimes you'll hit it right off. Okay, it's starting on now, but I'm just a little fat. Oh, I'm stuck. Okay, it started on, that's a good sign. Now, here we go. That should be pretty close. Yeah, that fits nice, except right at the end. Got to just take a little more off right at the bottom, which will be good. I want that to kind of snap on there. So it's annoying. You have to keep taking this off.
Suggestion is to sand it from that point.
You could, but I can't really get in there very well with the sandpaper. That last bit. Still not. Weird. Oh, well, I think it's actually not sticking there. It's sticking at the top. It's not, it must have a little edge at the top. Let me see if I can use one of the others. Yeah, they both do that. All right, so I just got to take a little more off the top, actually. That's weird. All right, hopefully this will fit. All right, so you see the ferrule is on, and it's a fantastic fitting ferrule. I've got just a little more to take off there, so I'm going to turn that off, and then that'll fit right on there. I'm going to just leave it on while I do the next bit of turning. I'm going to shave right off that bit right now, and we'll go right into the other aspects. So what we're going to do is set the depth of a couple different points. We're going to come get our 5/8 right here, and then we'll get our 5/8 over here. We know this is at the right dimension here. And then I'll go 7/8 right here where it flares back up. Here we go. First I'm going to trim that end. So I come in right with the skew like this, and I'm just going to just right against the brass. Oh, that was the, I must have pushed it back. Sometimes the, oh, it's on there good. Okay, there we are. So I think what I did was slightly end up, the hole got a little larger because I turned it off where it was pressured. I actually turned off so it started to slip. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and do our 5/8 right here. Get our 7/8 at the top. And we'll get our 5/8 at the other end too. Should have got that earlier. Let's see. That's this one. Right in here. Okay, that's nice. Now I'm going to just turn some of that down. This goes down. Okay, now we can do the shaping. I'm going to get the gouge, and I want to first start bringing my handle down and in. So this is what we're looking for, something like that. So I need to take some of this off. Now, I'm going to take the skew. This is one of the harder tools to learn when you start out, but because it's just a flat edge, and I'm going to ride this down. Nice, I want to just blend it in there. That's nice. Now it's kind of hard to get from this angle because I've got a cove, so I'm going to have to get that with the gouge. Just till I feel a nice smooth transition. Then I can sand the rest of that. Let's see. Now I've got to turn at the top. Let's go this way. Turn this down into the ferrule. Nice and light. Okay, that's good. I didn't want to touch the ferrule. I'm going to take it off before I do final sanding. All right, so up at this end now, I want to get it turned over and start making the bottom of the handle. It's kind of like pottery, you know, except it's harder material than clay. So I'm going to do a little more there. Starting to like the shape. Looks good. Now I want to come in here and I want to turn my little bead. So I want it big enough so it doesn't break off. So I'm going to go about that wide right there. I'll just make a little V cut. Now I can use the turn it this way. All right, that feels pretty good. I like that. That's a good sized bead at the end. It's a little bigger than some others. I think I wanted it bigger than the last one I made. All right, so I'm going to turn this a little smaller here. Be careful about the spur center. Okay, now just do any final touch up. Actually doesn't look too bad. I'm just gonna, I think I'll smooth this out, transition a little bit better. All right, let's see how it looks. Not too shabby. All right, so I'm going to move this back.
I have some questions.
And I'm going to get the ferrule off so I can, I've got to move this back. So I can do the final sanding. I'll start with 150. Doesn't take too long. The really great turners don't have to sand much because they get such a beautiful polish. You could see it kind of polished from the skew chisel. That leaves a beautiful surface. But it's better to use that type of cut where you're shearing the material off than just a scraping cut, because it takes you a lot longer to sand something that was just scraped with the chisel.
Dean's asking what the dust on this wood is like.
The dust?
Yeah.
It's kind of, I'm not kicking up a lot right now, but it's a little annoying. It's not the kind that, like cocobolo, that you immediately get a runny nose. No, it's not like that. I've just got a little bit there. But if you're going to sand a big, large thing, I probably would have normally put it on my dust mask, but
Rick is asking, is it true you should always cut downhill when you're turning?
Yes, yeah, that is true, Rick. That's you notice all my cuts were starting at the higher diameter, going down. If you try to go the other way, the chisel will just run on you because it wants to run uphill. Like, it's not uncommon when you're learning to use a skew that you'll have it catch and run right uphill on you because of maybe the way the tool was introduced, or. But the cool thing about that class we're going to do is if you feel intimidated and you're wondering whether you want to take it, I just have a lot of fresh wood that's still wet. It's super easy to turn, and there'll be no pressure to do a lot of practice exercises.
It's asking if there's a lot of silica in Wenge.
I don't know, Fred. You'd have to look that up. You think? I don't think so.
I don't know.
Okay, so that's 220. I would go to 320. I'm not going to go all the way on this one. I'll swap it out for another one, but let's take it out and see what we got. Oh, one other thing you can do, I wanted to mention, was I'll put that ferrule back on. Yeah, that snap. So that's looking pretty good. It feels good in my hand. This won't fit all the way. I have another one ready for it, but I'll have to ream that larger. But that's going to be a nice handle for that. I'll show you one that I've got a little further along. So this, one thing I like to do too, the brass is kind of scratchy. So I just use some 1200 grit paper. And with this mounted in the vise here, just sand the brass and polish it up. So you can see how it's kind of dull, satiny. I'll just get a little bit of 1200 on there. I can see it starting to shine brighter. It's not going to be, I don't want it super bright. So now I'm hitting it with 2000, some 2000 paper I had hanging around here. And that's it. So then this would be bandsawed off. So that's a pretty sweet handle. I'm going to put that one aside and move to one that I had. So once you get to this, you've got to get that cleaned up at the end. So I'm going to just bandsaw that off. Actually, let me take I'll use my little Japanese so I can do it right here. So I'm just going to saw this at a bit of an angle. Just keep moving around. Oops. It's almost trying to. Okay, now I'm going to take a chisel and just pare that little nub down. And then I'll file it a little bit. I would just file it with a small, like a fine file like this. And then once I file it just a little bit, then I take my little sander and just a palm sander, and I'm going to just sand this little bit off. So when you go a little longer than that, if I filed it a little more, you wouldn't even have that circle. So it ends up with a really beautiful finish. And then, where's my, okay, so here's my veneer saw. This hole is a little larger for the veneer saw. So that bad boy goes in there. And I could epoxy that right in. Check that out, huh? What a difference. I went from this chintzy little thing to that. Now you can even make a larger handle if you want. What's nice about this is you can use it to tap when you're adjusting your fence while you're working with veneer. So that'll be my new handle for this veneer saw. And then now it doesn't fit in the cabinet. Actually it does if I put it at an angle. So I'm also going to make a handle for this guy. That's actually what the one I just turned. I'm going to fit out the tangs for this roller. So I'll have a matching pair of the new roller and the new veneer saw. Really high style now, huh? Turns that way better. Now, once I've got it done, if you want to glue in the ferrule, I'm going to show you that really easily here. I've got actually one of those ice cream scoops that I made that is ready to be glued in. So before I glue in the ferrule, I'll disassemble and I'll put some tape around this tenon. I don't want to get any finish on there. And I just put some nice tung oil varnish, wiped it on there. I have usually 3 coats is enough. And then you can rub out the last one with steel wool if you like. And you'll end up with a handle like this. That's pretty sweet, huh? So this one's got 3 coats of tung oil, and then here's the little ferrule. Fits right on there. And this is set up for the ice cream scoop. Now they don't even sell this type anymore at craft supplies. Now they have a threaded version. This is probably too challenging. It's kind of annoying because once you drill the hole, you have to have the right kind of chisel to create 2 like grooves. I just used my veining carving chisel so that these nubs could fit in. And then it goes right in. Sits right in there. So I'm going to just show you really quickly how I epoxied them in. I got this new epoxy. I have just bought the 5-minute stuff before from the box stores, but this is definitely a superior epoxy. This hardened on here, and you almost can't even bend it. It's so, I mean, you're never getting that stick off there. So anyway, this is System 3 epoxy. They sell from Woodcraft. We'll put a link to this too. I'll put a link to the exact stuff I have here, because you can actually get it in 3 different cure speeds. I think the fastest one is like 15 minutes, and then this is a 30-minute, like you have 30-minute working time, and then there's one even longer than that. But this stuff takes, I let it go overnight to really harden up, and you mix it 1 part to 2 parts. That's why this is twice as much here. It has a little bit of an amber tint, but I don't care about that. So I'm going to disassemble. I'm going to epoxy on the ferrule first, and then we'll get some in the hole. Now, I could measure this out, but you know me. I'm just going to make a circle here. This will be, that's 1. I'll make 2 of these. You don't need a ton of this stuff. Okay, that's good. That's 2 parts, and I need 1 part of the other. So I'll just let that kind of sit right here.
Why would you not put tongue oil under the ferrule?
Oh, I just want, well, you know what? Maybe it wouldn't matter. Yeah, maybe it doesn't even matter with the epoxy. I was just thinking I didn't want to interfere with the glue. That's usually an issue with inferior glues. I bet it wouldn't even matter with the epoxy. But yeah, you're right. Typically I just protecting that because I was thinking of it as a glue surface. So, but I think epoxy is going to stick to it anyway. So I'm going to just mix this up nice. Then I'm just going to put it on the tenon first. A little bit on there. I'll put a little inside the ferrule. All right, here we go. Now I'm going to just fit the ferrule. I'm getting a lot of squeeze out there, but that's okay. That one fits a little looser than the other, but you can just quickly wipe it off. Nice. Now we'll get some in the socket. I'm going to put a little on the tang as well. But there's some great turners online. You can check them out. On Instagram, there's this guy I really like watching a lot, Steve the Wood Turner. If you look up he does some amazing stuff with a skew chisel. I mean, anyone who's turned, you watch him and you think, wow, that guy, he's been turning over 30 years. Lot. So it's almost like an extension of his hand. It's just, when you've done some turning, you really understand when you see a real master. So I'm going to put this stick right in here, and I'm going to bring this in the house tonight so it'll be a little warmer. And I'll bring this in too, and then I can tell when that's hard as a rock, I know this is ready to go. There you have it. Check it out. That's a nice, sweet little handle. That's how the Wengi looks finished. Isn't that a classic, like old-time looking scoop? I love the stainless steel shape here. So the ones they sell now have a threaded piece here. So you drill a hole. You can still use the epoxy, but you'll thread the rod into the hole easier than that double tang thing sticking out on the sides. That's tough. And but you still could use a ferrule like this as well. But I really like the way this one fits my hand. That ball sort of fits right in the palm. And then my finger, my index finger fits right in there. And then I could use my finger on the knob or not. And it's the optimal shape to get the premium scoop of ice cream. It's all about fine technique, whether you're scooping ice cream or, no, I'm just kidding. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for hanging out in the shop. We had a good time. Learned how to turn and spruce up our tools and our chisels, and maybe even make an ice cream scoop.